It is the next morning, and I am actually surprised at how hard this glue squeeze out has become. I had been hoping that it would be kind of soft and I'd be able to easily slice it off, but I can see that's not going to happen. Well, right now these doors could be very easily snapped. If I was to hold down on here and lift up on there, probably wouldn't take very much force to break it somewhere here. And I am planning on putting reinforcing on the inside of the door. I'll have something like this. Maybe what I'll do is I'll have it so that it kind of tapers down and make sure that I've got it lined up so that it doesn't hit any of the shelves. Anyway, we'll see what happens here. But first, I got to get rid of this extra glue here. In the Lee Valley catalog, I saw a little device that would be really good for, shaving off a glue line. And I've been wanting to try this. This is just the blade out of my plane, hand plane. I put that in there, and then if I put this on here, now by the way, you're seeing it for the first time just like me. I haven't actually tried this, so I don't know if it's going to work. Now, I've said this before in my videos. I do not like to do reenactments. If I say this is the first time, it really is the first time. I'm not faking it here. Now the idea is behind this little washer is so that if this magnet should slide forward on the blade, the washer should catch on the recessed area on the inside of the magnet. Anyway, let's try it out and see if it'll work. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. Well, I flipped the board over, and I've done the other side here, and this is unbelievable. This was just one pass. Just went along like this. Took it off. This works really, really well. I should have done this before. I'm happy with this thing. Okay, maybe I'm overdoing it here, but I want you to be impressed with it too. There's a little bit on this end where this side is slightly higher than this side, but other than that, that's good. Pretty well everything in my workshop that's heavy, that I have to move around at least, is on wheels. Now this sander, it weighs almost 300 pounds, and yet I can move it around easily anywhere I want. Okay, I'm sorry about my arm always getting in the way. Okay, now the reason for the little line is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand up to the line and then stop. Now you'll probably notice that this board is slightly longer than this board. We'll get it nice and square. Now you'll remember I said that the case had to be just under 48 inches long. Now it doesn't mean that it can't be smaller, it just can't be bigger. So I'm going to go ahead now and make the cupboard, or the case I keep calling it, and I'm going to make it this long, less 1/4 of an inch, because I am going to be cutting two cuts up the edges here and here, and the hinges will be mounted on here. Well, you'll see. Now, I've never sanded anything that was 24 inches wide before on this sander. I think I've done 20 inches. Well, let's give it a whirl. Now, General Tools calls this their 24-inch sander, but as you can see, it's almost 25 inches of sanding area. So I guess I mean you can safely sand 24 inches. Now you notice there's a little bolt right here, and the sandpaper comes just this side of the bolt. Well, there's another bolt on the other side, mirror image to this one. So if I line the board up in between these bolts on both sides, it should be pretty well right. Okay, now I'm only going to be sanding one side of these doors, and I'll be sanding the best side. Now you can see that this side has got a little chip here on the corner. Doesn't go all the way through to the other side, so I'll be flipping it over and sanding the other side. Okay, now the rollers are just now kissing the board when it's like this. So I'm going to go back exactly one turn. Exactly one turn. Now I can take the board out. Now I'm going to go ahead one turn. And maybe just less a little bit, just to play it safe. And that'll be my first pass. I'm going to make a little prediction here. And that prediction is that at the end here there's going to be a tiny little bit of snipe. And this board is so big I can't really make up a sled to put it in. Okay, two things happened. First of all, I did end up sanding both sides. And secondly, that snipe that I was expecting to see right about there isn't there. Or it's so slight I can't see it. Maybe after I get the Varathane or whatever I'm going to do on it, it'll show up. Now here's a little tip for anybody who's thinking of getting one of these machines and they're going to be using it for the first time on something wide like this. Something wide like this, it's not going to touch everywhere along the board at the same time. And you probably noticed I was rubbing my hand on it. Well, that wasn't to feel if it was smooth. That was to feel where it was warm and where it was cool. And when it was warm evenly across the entire board, I knew that the sander had done its job across the entire board, and there was no use sanding any further. This is the board I just sanded. This is the one I'm going to do in a couple of minutes. There's very little difference. I didn't take very much off. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe a 64th of an inch. And we go down here. Okay. There's the glue line right there. Can't feel anything on that. You have to really look hard to see it. You have to know where it is. If you didn't know where it is, you wouldn't see it. This is what's known as a precision straight edge. It's the kind of thing that you may never use for a few months, and then all of a sudden you might want to check and see if something is perfectly flat. And it's also the sort of thing you do not lend out, because it would make a wonderful pry bar, and if somebody was to use it as a pry bar, it would lose its accuracy. So what I want to do now is just check and see how flat did that sander sand this. Okay, this is 6/1000ths of an inch. And I'm just going to press down here just a little bit to take the spring out of the board. It won't change the test at all. Well, there was no place that the feeler gauge wanted to slip underneath. So I would say that's 99% flat. You could never do it like that by hand. And I guess that wraps it up for this video. Please watch for part 3.